I've been wandering this desert, finding only danger, never knowing where I'm gonna go. Feeling lonely as I wander, but I was seeking answers. When
Hello.
I felt your spirit
Hey guys,
touch my soul.
welcome back. Tonight, well, I guess I'll take over because tonight I'm going to be, we're going to be getting Brad's testimony tonight, and I'm going to be getting information, asking questions, and we're going to go over his story tonight.
Can't wait.
How you feeling?
Tired. Let's do it.
Okay, well, go ahead and get started then.
Well, I guess we could start from when I was a kid. It's kind of how you did it.
Yep.
But
Start from the beginning.
we had a family of 6, and we had a bunch of animals and a small farm, and we decided along the way at one point that we were gonna add some horses to the situation, and we had eventually chickens, goats, and horses, and we lived in a small town, and there was probably 300 or 400 people. But we had, I guess I had 2 brothers, 1 sister, and my mom and my dad, and I am the only one of their kids together. So my dad had a couple of kids prior to my mom, and then my mom had my sister prior to my dad, and that was just one big happy Brady bunch at one point.
So you were a blended family also.
If you do that, it's gonna be really cliquey, but we were a blended family, and we had a lot of issues at the beginning. If I can remember back correctly, it was just getting that family together, and mom and dad were doing a lot of fighting, and they were doing a lot of yelling, and I was little when I started remembering these things. But I seen as time went on that they had a lot of back and forth about the kids. There was a lot of decisions to be made with, dad's 2 kids, mom's 1 kid, and now me, their kid. So it was a lot of back and forth on how, when, and where, and what to do. And we ended up all together after some courts, fighting back and forth for the boys, my brothers, and Casey was already with mom, so that was pretty easy. But we had all 4 of us and my mom and dad, and we were, like I said, we were on out in the country, grew up. My parents started teaching us, talking about the Bible really soon. Like I remember back being about 6 or 7, and I remember being in the back of a truck after my dad had just shot a dove. And I've told you this story before, but he shot a dove, and he let me ride in the back of the truck. I know that's a no-no now, but back then I was in the back of the truck, and I had this dove in my hand, and I remember praying, because I believed at that moment that God, at that time, God could bring this animal back to life if I asked. So I asked, and I was tempted to just toss it up in the air as we were driving, but I decided that Dad would be very mad if it didn't fly away, and so I kind of chickened out. But I remember having the faith that he could do it. Like, I remember thinking that and thinking about it throughout my life, that in that moment I was like, this bird could come back to life.
Well, why did you want the bird to come back to life?
Because I was a kid. Dad just shot it. It was kind of rough.
So you were just sad, felt like pity.
I felt real sad for it, and I was praying for it to come back to life. If it would just came back to life and started moving, I would have threw that bird, but it just didn't.
Were your siblings with you on that trip?
Yeah, they were in the front though. They put me in the back. I guess I probably wanted to. Probably wanted to hold the dove and whatever. But we ended up doing a whole lot of gathering and hunting growing up, and my dad taught me a lot of hands-on things. Mm-hmm. They started doing a type of religion, we'll call it, back then when I was when I was roughly 7 or 8, they told us that the churches, the Christian churches, were set up wrongly, and they said, "Look, this stuff's wrong. The Sabbath day is actually on the seventh day. We're not going to attend the churches on the first day of the week when it's supposed to be the seventh. That's the commandment." And I remember opening my Bible when I was really young, and my mom would show me and read to me the Leviticus setup, and I took a lot of that to heart, of course, because I ended up going to school and not preaching, but telling my friends that they were doing wrong for eating pork and going to church on Sundays.
Well, were you nice about it?
No. No, I was vicious. I was not nice, and looking back, I could have came across a little different maybe and convinced some people. But I didn't get any hits, if you will. I just got a whole lot of weird looks like, "What are you doing?" And it was about that was probably between 8 and 10 to maybe up to about 11, 12ish.
You said you were in a blended family. Did your siblings go to school with you?
Oh yeah.
Did
yeah.
Did they
We
all
went
live
to the
with
same
you?
school. We all got together after Dad won a court case,
Okay.
and my brothers were with us. Now they went every other weekend to their biological mother.
Your brothers.
Yes,
Okay.
my two brothers, and so they were my half brothers, and my sister was my half sister. She had a different dad, or a different biological dad. She never knew him at the time, so she only knew Dad. I think she was about 2 or 3 when mom and dad got together.
Gotcha.
You know?
Okay.
And then they had me like first year and a half or so after they were married. But anyway, as we were growing up, they were telling us these things, and I remember thinking about them heavily and reading and looking at these different passages, and thinking that there was going to be some type of gathering that I would be able to get involved with at one point, but there was nobody. Mom and Dad were the only ones. They actually told us they actually stopped eating filthy. They stopped. Well, they never really went to church, but they stopped doing a lot of things. But similar to your situation, their fruits weren't always perfect in the way that they were showing in the word or whatever. They weren't doing all the things. They had chosen the Sabbath because that was easy, I guess, or that was the one that was obvious, and they were doing the dietary laws, and they were fighting along the way, because they had growing up. I remember crying a lot because I was the baby, and I would sit back and watch everybody be in just turmoil, and I would see the screaming and hollering outside, and it was the wild West back then. Like it was just different. And the 80s and 90s was totally different than today. But I was about 12, I think, 11 or 12, when my mom and dad said, "You guys should go to church. Y'all should see it for yourselves. You should figure this out." Now, at this time, we had also stopped Christmas, and we had also stopped other holidays like Easter.
Okay.
And we kind of implemented that as we went. The dietary laws were tough because the rest of our family did not want to do that, and by the rest I mean extended family, like my mom's mom, my grandmother, and her household, and grandpa and grandma on both sides really. One of my grandmothers would she heard about it, talked about it. Mom and Dad tried to explain their reasoning, and I remember Grandma being like, "Okay, well I'll stop cooking that while the kids are here," because usually when when my two brothers would go and stay with their mom, me and Casey would go stay with Grandma, my mom's mom. So it would leave Mom and Dad an open weekend to do whatever they did, and usually it was clean on the Sabbath. That was their thing. They would lock us outside, tell us to go play.
Unless you're at your grandparents.
Unless I was at my grandparents, yeah, and we would go play, drink out of the water hose, and not come back till dark. And literally how it went. And they would clean the house up during that period and get it back to ready for the week.
So why, if they quit going to churches, did they encourage you guys to go to church?
I remember Mom and Dad saying that we should go and see it for ourselves, and that's about the time that I was really big into singing at the time, So whenever I did go to the church, it was a local Baptist church. It was walking distance from our house. I mean, it was a mile or two, but you could walk there. I did it a couple times, but I joined immediately joined their little singing group where they didn't have like a band and instruments and stuff, but they did have like the ability to plug in a song, and you could sing the song and through their microphone or whatever while they played the music over the thing. So me and Casey immediately got up there and tried to sing a song or two, and I still remember the song to this day, which is kind of interesting. It's the first time I'd ever sang in front of people with Casey, because she was just there for moral support more than anything. She wasn't the best singer, but she tried hard, She did a good impression of Reba, but that was about it, That was about it. Anyways, we ended up staying at that church for many years. My brothers ended up there, and we all were there. The things that I saw in this particular church was eye-opening. It was kind of similar to your story, but not as extreme. The $100,000 thief guy or the $1 million guy. Ours was a little different. The pastor guy would get up there and light a fire on Sunday mornings. Like he would really make your skin crawl. He was real good at that. He was a good announcer, a good deep dark voice, and he would do a whole lot of yelling and hit you in the face kind of preaching. I forget what they call that.
Traditional
Fire and brimstone.
Baptist. Yeah, fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was like the fire and brimstone preaching, and then he would get quiet, and then I went up at like, I don't know, 10, 11, maybe 12, and got saved, said the prayer up there with the deacons or whoever was doing it that day, and shed some tears, and then my brothers followed, and then we were all getting baptized a weekend or two later. They were having baptisms, and it was the craziest thing, but I remember this because it's super vivid about this situation. We were driving in to go get baptized, and Mom and Dad, you got to come. We're all getting baptized. Well, okay, we'll come watch y'all's baptisms. Cool. So we all four got baptized, and another person, as a couple other people that scheduled that night as well. But we got up there and
Gotta love the scheduled baptisms.
Yeah, the scheduled baptisms. It was a couple 2 or 3 weeks probably after the save, when I got the ball passed to me, I got saved. But anyways, that night there was supposedly clear skies, so we didn't think nothing about the weather. Mm-hmm. And then we get up there, and just about the time I got baptized, I think second. I think Casey was first. I think I got second, and then Josh was third, which is, I'm saying names. We'll bleep this out. One of my brothers.
No, you don't have to bleep out names. It's fine.
But my brother got saved. Got baptized, and a storm was hitting, and we didn't know it. And it was actually an active tornado just up the street that had just popped up out of nowhere. And the lights went out like right as he was getting in the water, and the guy was getting ready to do the dipping. It was, and the lights just went out, and it was like boom, real loud lightning, and it hadn't started raining yet. It was real calm, but it was lightning and thundering. It took the lights out, and then the wind started blowing. And I remember we had to postpone Charlie's. My oldest brother, we had to postpone his till later because the lights went out that night. A tornado hit, and Mom and Dad, of course, were all the whole assembly, our whole church was freaking out. We ran out to the vehicles as fast as we could. We all six piled inside of my dad's truck, and just about that time, we're pulling out of this place, and the tornado's hitting. And it's it literally takes the truck. It didn't pick it up off the ground, but it spun the truck in the middle of the road all the way around to where it was facing the other direction. So we were at this point like freaked out, and we didn't. I was screaming and crying, to be honest with you. I was young, but we were all screaming, panicking, and then the tornado just passed, and it's like we were still there in the truck, and it was just like, okay, we made it, we're good. So Dad pulls back into the parking lot, turns around, and we go on home, because the tornado's still heading east or whatever. But it was about a year or two later after that I joined all the sports teams in the schools. I was already playing outside the schools, but I was doing all the things. I had the video games, and I had the sports on my mind all the time. The big three for sure. The baseball, basketball, football. Big into that. It was a big part of my life growing up, and I had joined the 7th grade football team, I believe it was, and we ended up having problems in the school. It was a racial war,
Okay.
right? And it was about 6th grade, 5th to 7th grade was big race. It was white versus black. That's just how it was. We all stuck together. They all stuck together. It wasn't till the sports thing became a thing that I realized that we all had to work together in order to be on the same teams. So then all of a sudden it was a different 7th through senior than it could have been.
Sure.
Without the sports, I don't think that we would have ever molded as friends, and eventually ended up being by the senior year was, we were all friends. We were close friends. Almost everybody. It was
Good. Yeah.
It was kind of a cool change to see in a small town where I'm from. But about that time after the tornado happened and that night, we another couple years of going to that church, started seeing things. I was getting older and noticing things, and my brothers had already dropped out. They were going to their friend's house. They were doing this. They wanted to go hunting. They wanted to do anything other than be a part of that. And my sister did too. And she was kind of jumping around to a Pentecostal church in the local area and inviting me to come to that one after I had dropped out of this church, and not knowing at the time at like 13ish, maybe 14, the reasoning behind everybody kind of dropping out was because of the things Mom and Dad had told us about. Maybe not particularly my two brothers on their reasoning why, but the church, the pastor guy, he was doing things that were that were not good.
Like what? And is this the Baptist church or the Pentecost church?
The Baptist church,
Baptist
the place
church.
we had been going for many years. He did a lot of bad things, but what I had found out later on is there was always a funny smell on the church bus, and I was a kid, so I had no idea what was going on. But come to find out, the pastor was actually smoking pot, as you said, smoking pot with all the kids on the church bus. Like it was just a normal thing.
So he would preach to them and then go
Absolutely.
smoke pot on the bus with the kids.
Exactly.
Did the parents know?
I was a kid. I don't know. I know my mom and dad knew.
Okay.
And there were some other things that came up later on. There was a lock-in. I think you had mentioned one of those that you attended. But they had a lock-in at the church, and it was probably man, I'm gonna say I was probably 12 to 14 years old. I don't know the exact days, but I remember this vividly. We got locked in, and the preacher guy got caught touching some girl, and she screamed bloody murder outside the building after we had been locked in.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like
So he singled her out or whatever.
something happened. I didn't see it happen, but I remember, and Casey was there for this one, so maybe she was there to chaperone me. I don't know, but she was there for the lock-in, and Casey, my sister was there. I can't help that. Sorry, but
You don't have to apologize.
they. I remember she jumped in the mix of the back and forth with the preacher and the young girl, and she was probably 15 to 17. I don't know, somewhere in there. She was a young girl. She was Casey's age or younger, my sister's age. But she had, my sister jumped into the brawl as it was, and she started screaming, "Well, you've touched me before too. That's why I don't go here anymore," or something like that.
Okay.
He had.
So it didn't just happen to this other girl; it happened to your sister as well.
Yeah, but it had happened probably. It had happened in the past because I know she was already not going there.
Right.
and it was one of those. He had just rubbed up against her or something and made her feel uncomfortable. She got out of that church, and by then she was driving, so she was able to do that. She was able to kind of join her friends at a Pentecostal church that did the whole bit, the speaking in the tongues, flopping on the floors, and all that. The Assembly of God, I guess it was. But anyway, I remember that vividly because I was just like, what is going on? And there was punches thrown and crazy screaming fights, and just it was wild. And we ended up calling parents to come pick people up because they shut the lockdown out. Like, it was like, okay, no more lockdown tonight. No more youth group having fun in this church. And it was just it was
Well,
it was eye opening.
if the pastor's smoking pot with the youth and getting caught touching or rubbing up against people, whatever it is,
Yeah.
we can't. If it's something that makes a girl uncomfortable, it's not a dismissal type thing. So I don't blame your sister for not going back, and for the parents or whatever calling a close to lock-in, because it shouldn't happen regardless of whether it's a touch, a poke, a molestation, whatever. It's still indecent.
Yeah, that would have been probably worse. But anyways, after I left, I shortly after realizing all this, I ended up leaving that church, that setup, that group. Still see the people, for years. They all lived in the area, with us. So I've seen these people all the time at the gas stations, whatever. But we end up, me personally, I ended up pretty much leaving the church establishment altogether, and including as time went on from 14ish to 18ish, really 4 years for sure, where I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't looking in the Bible, wasn't doing any kind of focusing on the Word in any way. I wasn't having any. I wasn't having anybody tell me what to do. I was very headstrong and very numb to the idea that I had to listen to anybody.
Were your parents trying to guide you in Bible studies still, or?
No, they had also dropped off.
Okay.
It was, and they had their own studies going on during that time. They were real big into the Left Behind series, and they were real big into some other guy, Ted Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Garner Armstrong. Anyways, mom was always kind of studying that stuff, but they, as a family as a whole, we got lost. We got down into a different state of mind. My oldest brother was ready to move out. My second to the under him, my second to the oldest brother, he was going down a bad path about this time in that 4-year period, and got kicked out of the house. And lots of drama, lots of craziness going on at our house all the time, and it was never. I was shielded to a lot of it. A lot of this I learned later on.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember the fights.
Okay.
I didn't ever really remember why, from 12 to 14-ish. I didn't really know why. Or I say 12, from 5 to about 14. I was always kind of shielded by everybody. For whatever reason, my family members didn't involve me in those things. So I felt, I was a kid, and I felt like I had a wonderful upbringing. My parents both loved me to death. They babied me. They spoiled me. They took care of me. They focused on me probably more than the others, and that could have been some of the issues that ended up being with the olders, because they're from the split side and I'm the only one that's theirs. So I mean, I could see that being an issue, but my mom and dad loved and took care of me thoroughly. I spent most of my time playing sports with my dad, or fishing and hunting and cooking with my mom when I was younger, and I did all kinds of stuff with them. I had a real peaceful life, to be honest with you. It was just seeing all the drama and chaos was always confusing for me, because I'm just like, why is everybody so mad? I'm not mad. Why are y'all mad? You're screaming. You're crying. What's going on? And I found out later in life some of the details of those those brawls or those whatever you want to call them, family drama. But I was definitely from after that church, and I was definitely not paying any attention to God in any way. And I always knew that I believed during this period, and I still prayed at times. I would not necessarily when I just needed something, but I always kind of had a conversation with the Father, thankfulness, stuff like that. But it was never. I didn't have a deep relationship with Him ever in my life, and I didn't know that until I was 30. So as I push forward here, and I'll skip some of the in between, I ended up. Everybody moved out of the house. It was just me, mom, and dad. So I went rampant from my senior year, pretty much my senior year and between my junior and senior year that summer. I was doing all kinds of stupid stuff. I was doing it, hiding behind my parents' back, and just doing stupid stuff. I mean, I was drinking a lot. I was running around with the wrong crowds. I never got into drugs per se, but until later on. But I had a lot of alcohol in my life really young, and was able to get away with it, or so I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I never did any drinking and driving or anything like that. I'm not saying I was actually a really good kid. I really was, and not just because I was the baby, but I was a good kid.
You were in a small town,
Sure.
so not a lot to do,
Yeah.
and you no longer have older siblings to tattle on you. They're all gone.
That's fair.
And your parents worked a lot.
They did.
And I mean, I know that. I didn't ask him that, but I know that.
Well, no, to that point, I didn't cover that, but mom and dad were working second and third and first shift, and they worked at a factory. They did this all my life, and it was pennies. I didn't realize at the time because I had everything I ever possibly needed and wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about it, but my parents worked crazy long hours my whole life, and it's just been the past 10 years that they've been able to not work as hard, and it's kind of odd to see, to be honest, because I'm used to them grinding. I'm 16-hour days sometimes for dad, and 40 years at the same job, stuff like that. But yeah, I was home alone. I didn't have the siblings to tattle on me anymore.
And you were involved in the sports.
I was involved in the sports heavily.
Often comes with
stupidity.
Something on the backside.
Absolutely. They were all attached. My grade, and just an overall picture of Brad, I always had the ability to make good grades, but I never wanted to. And it was actually when I was getting my driver's license. Mom tells the story better than me, but I was getting my driver's license, or I wanted it, and I had failed the 7th grade, and I wanted to get my driver's license, but we didn't have but one vehicle at the house. And I was, just turning 14-ish, somewhere in there. And I had failed the 7th grade. And then the next year in 7th grade, I was old enough to get my license or my permit.
In 7th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I was behind,
Just like, wow.
Yeah, this is how it was. Sorry. Well, it was still in middle school.
Yeah.
So I was able to get my permit, but we only had one vehicle. So I was willing, and my parents for some reason allowed this, but they allowed me to get up at 4 a.m, take Dad to work, drive him all the way to Little Rock, or all the way to, I'll bleep that out, but drive me all the way to town for 40 minutes, come all the way home, pick up my mom, take her all the way to the big city, and then drive all the way to school. And
It was just with a permit, or after you get your license?
Oh, no. Okay, so yeah, I ended up doing it with my license as well, that exact. But with the permit, I would take Dad, and then I would take Mom, and Mom would come drop me off, but let me drive. And it was weird because there was no parking spots for people, so I wasn't able to do that in middle school. That was a good question. That made me think a little more. I would take the big red van with Mom in the passenger seat, and she would let me drive to school, and then she would switch with me in the bus line, and she would get in the drive, and she would drive to the city to go to work. And I don't know why I threw a huge fit. I was like, well, I want to drive to school. I want to drive to school. I want to be. I'm old enough. I threw this. I remember throwing a big fit many times and being a spoiled, rotten brat that just should have never. And not that my dad didn't have discipline on us and me. It was just I was the baby and I took advantage of it. That's just how it was. But anyway,
I feel it.
once Mom and Dad had all the other kids out and still coming back and leaving and coming back and leaving for many reasons. We don't have to get into that today. That's their business. But the whole idea of God during this period was very, hey man, I'm a believer. I believe I got saved. And if that question ever came up, I got saved. I had filthy mouth. I had terrible, terrible, mean things I would do to people. Just stuff that I shouldn't have been doing and I thought was funny. I never really, always protected people from bullies, but there's times I look back that I feel like I was the bully. You know, that kind of thought pattern. But anyways, I ended up getting my girlfriend at the time, ended up getting her pregnant at 19 years old. No, at 18 years old. And I ended up getting married to her.
What year was this?
This was
Well, like what grade?
2004, senior year.
School?
It was my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my senior year in high school. I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant, devastating my parents, of course, and getting all the, I can't believe you would do this, and, you know, long story short, I ended up getting her pregnant. I ended up attempting to marry her, and ended up marrying her before the baby came. So it was probably at like 4 months maybe pregnant when we got married, maybe 6.
Were you still in school when you got married?
No, it was right after school. So,
Okay.
yeah, doing the math, yeah, she was probably 5 months pregnant, I would think, because we graduated in the normal time people graduate. I don't know, right there after spring, but
So your parents did not take it well.
no.
Did her?
No.
Did her
I didn't
parents
take
take
it well.
Well, I know you
She didn't really have any parents. Her grandparents took it rough.
Okay.
And it was, you know, it's just one of the things that I ended up having a conversation with my dad, and I told you this the other day, but I ended up talking to my dad about it, and he was like, you need to give that kid a name. And he told me that, and I was just like, man, I want to go to college. I want to do my thing. I don't even want to be, I actually had a conversation with him just a couple weeks prior to that, where I was just like, I really don't even, I've got to figure out a way to get away from this lady, this girl.
Why?
I just didn't like her. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember my thoughts exactly, but I know I didn't want to be with her. And then she got pregnant.
Was she trying to drag you to God at all, or her family in any way?
Her family was Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
And she was far from that. And it's funny. I'm glad that kind of came up because my parents always told me that the Jehovah's Witnesses had a lot of it figured out growing up. You know, just periodic conversations like, you know, the Baptists are screwed up. You know, the Catholics, obviously. And, you know, we would talk about things like this. And I remember them saying the Jehovah's Witnesses got a lot of this figured out. But no, she wasn't involved in that other than by force. And by the time we were together, I've never been to the Kingdom Hall, you know, with them ever.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no. No, I never actually got involved in any of that, and nor did she. So it wasn't ever an issue. But we ended up getting married. We had my first son, and it was about 2.5, 3 years, somewhere in there. Brad's still being Brad. Brad's still drinking. Brad's still, not that I was drinking enough, not that I was an alcoholic. And I tell these stories, and usually people are like, oh man, you were an alcoholic. I really wasn't. I really didn't have any desire to be drunk all the time. That wasn't ever really the thing, and I wasn't really depressed. I was just having fun in my brain. But obviously, I was not taking care of my son. I always did that. Like he was first. I ended up being really in love with the idea of having the family after I decided to marry, or my dad talked me into it, to be honest with you. But after I decided to do that, ended up a couple, 2, 3 years into it, I'm like, I love to have my child around. Like, I'm just holding him. We're jumping up and down all the time, having a great old time, flipping on the bed, doing the things, and just doing what dads do with kids, like my dad did me. And then, you know, some time passed, and during that time period, I was going to college, and I'm trying to figure things out to where I can get some kind of future for my son. And I'm at this point thinking, okay, well, I've had ambitions to be a technician, turn wrenches, fix things. I've done that stuff all my life with my dad. A lot of the stuff we did was that kind of stuff too. But I ended up going to college to do that. And during this time, it was still no God. I still wasn't. I wasn't even. I look back and I wasn't even thankful that I had the family. I didn't think that I had a little boy. I didn't think that I had a wife and kids and a place to live, and I didn't thank him for that stuff. Thanks for this meal. Let's get it out before it gets cold. That kind of stuff. I never sat back and just realized what Yah had put me through for first off with all the stuff in my family and the growing up, and then be thankful that I wasn't living in a box somewhere with my kid starving to death. I feel terrible as I got older, not looking back and thinking like that, but it was very selfish and something that needed to be repented of heavily.
You were still young.
Well, I was young, but I mean, I was 20. I was in my 20s, by now. And lo and behold, the first marriage did not make it, and it was.
Were there reasons behind that?
Yeah. I mean, I at the time I would have blamed her and her only, but after growing a little wiser and understanding my thought patterns and what I was doing, I was still being Brad. Like I said, I was not the best husband in the world. I obviously didn't cheat on her, beat on her, do anything that nature. But it was infidelity on the other side that caused the split. I was actually like I said, madly in love with the whole idea of the family. We got a kid. What are you doing? We can't do this. Just to a point of self-destruction. And then it was sadness for many years after that. And I didn't turn to God again. I turned to the bottle, and I turned to the friends, and let's get drunk. I still have my kid, so I tried to be as tight as I could be with him. I didn't, drinking and driving and none of that. Never with the kid. It wasn't like I wasn't that messed up, but I was struggling with the idea that I was going to have to start over and figure out something different. And I did have a good paying job at the time, so that helped. But I ended up, not even doing that. I ended up going into technician mechanic work, full time, and went to kept trying to go to college and actually get some type of degree in business. I didn't actually get to finish it completely, but I got a couple years. It was just one of those things where I was so unfocused, where I couldn't see the light for the forest. And I was devastated in my brain, and I was devastated physically. I let myself get really, really big. I was probably up to like 435 pounds. I just got I didn't realize at the time, but got real depressed and, started doing crazy stuff. And started hanging out with more wrong people, and I ended up getting an invite when I was about 24-ish. My parents were actually at the house alone now for the past 3 or 4 years. Their youngest son, their son, me, the only one that was together, got married, great, ended up getting divorced. It's a big deal to them, you know. They had personal issues. It's just them at the house now, and the grandkid. So they spent a lot of time with my first son. A lot of time when they were young. They were still, Mama's still real physically active and able to hang out with babies, and obviously my dad, he still is. But they spent a lot of time with my first son because there was gaps that needed to be filled, and they were willing to do it. It was literally, for a while, I had to work on the weekends, and so did his mother. So they had to take him on the weekends. Now my weekend shifts were a lot shorter, like a few hours, but there was times I had to drop my son off with my, and think at the time, thank God that my parents were able to do that, because it would have been devastating to the pocketbooks, and it was just real. It was a real big blessing in disguise at the time that and they're still real close to him, and they still feel close to him. He's grown up now, so he's a little standoffish, but he loves them, and I know they love him because that's all they talk about. But the long story short, they did us a huge favor at the time, just taking care of him from literally infant to 3-ish, and then on to probably like 10, really, off and on for different reasons, for whatever, But at this point, I'm still going downhill. Like I don't realize that I think I'm climbing, but I'm still going downhill. I'm still growing further and further and further away from anything that has anything to do with Yah, and it's devastating to look back at how lost I actually was, and how hard I pushed my body through these devastating occurrences that were not healthy, from the overeating to the drugs. I ended up getting big into pot at like 24, 25. And it was just looking back on it now, it's crazy to think about. But anyway, as we push forward in time here, I'll go into the next saga of my life. But I'm, again, still have not found any peace. I'm just running crazy. I'm just a young man. I'm picking up refrigerators to impress people kind of energy, just doing a lot of, still involved in sports, casually, obviously. But my parents got into a big fight, and like I said, they were together for, at this point, I think 30 years, 35 years, maybe, somewhere in there. Yeah, because they were together a long time, and they got into a big fight, and I ended up, my sister invited me to come live with her. I went up there, and I lived with my sister and her husband, and they had one kid at the time.
Okay.
Or, yeah. No, they wouldn't have. Not yet. No, because, yeah. So it was just them.
Okay.
And they had moved to a house that was big enough. They said, "Hey, man, come on up." And so I went up there and stayed with my sister for, I don't know, 6 months.
God bless those older sisters.
Yeah, and it was actually really nice to get away from everybody here, in this area, and just kind of figure out myself and understand. It's crazy to think about, but it's actually where I picked up my bad habit of smoking pot.
Oh, okay.
So again, you, no matter where you are, if you're not with Yah, you're constantly looking for something to entertain, something to make you feel good, something to whatever. But I ended up when mom and dad got in that big fight. I ended up coming back because mom and dad had split briefly. We'll call it 2 weeks,
Really?
maybe. Might have been 12 days, but
Okay.
anyway, long story short, I came back to this area, and when I got here, some of my friends from high school had decided to come back from college. They had been gone to college all this time, while I was in the tech program and then a little 2-year course. The all my friends that I'd hung out with in high school, they're coming back from college, and they ended up inviting me to join a band or form a band.
Okay.
And it was it became the next several years of my life, and here I am, always into music as well. And I didn't really cover any of that; doesn't really matter. But I was into music heavily growing up. I was into instruments, stuff like that, and I had ended up joining this band. I ended up moving in with this band. I ended up making more poor choices. I ended up doing a lot of bad things. I ended up smoking a whole lot of pot, as Jennifer calls it, pat from the north, and doing a lot of drinking, doing a lot of hanging out, doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I ended up dating one of the young girls that followed the band around.
So the groupie.
Yeah, I guess that's what you call it. Was, I mean, not by definition, but yes. Yeah.
Okay.
She was following the band around. Ended up dating her. Ended up playing a bunch of shows across America, and ended up marrying her. And boy, was that fun. It was another one of those bad decision, Brad. You weren't thinking, you're doing.
Elaborate.
Well, there's no reason to get too details with that. That doesn't matter. It didn't work out. We ended up being married, I guess, for a couple of years, year and a half. I don't know how long we were married, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It was wild. I don't remember a lot of the memories from the whole era because I was just not there. I was doing anything I could to have fun. It was party time. And again, it's not that I was disregarding my child, because I still had a child. Mm-hmm. I still, even when I was in with my sister, 3.5 hours away, I was still driving home every weekend and picking up my son every weekend. That was kind of the deal. It was, and at that time, Mom and Dad were getting less time because I was driving all the way back 3.5 hours with him and then back out again on Sundays. But
that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was rough. But I had to see my son. Wanted to see my son. Would have been nice if he could have just stayed with me all the time, and I probably would have forced me to clean my life up a little bit. But that's not an excuse. I'm just in hindsight, because I tried to shelter him. Don't want to be jacked up around your own kids. I don't know what animal kind of a dad would do that, but anyway, the time went on. The band ended up splitting. Me and the second wife now have split, and it's infidelity again. This one seemed a little more seen it coming kind of thing versus the first one, but it is what it is. And they had I ended up, like I said, splitting with the band, and I ended up getting away from the band members that were my friends. Ended up getting away from them people for a while, and after that, it was still the same old Brad. I still hadn't done anything to get closer to God in any way. And all along in this time, by the way, I still know He's there.
Right.
I still thought about it, and I still thought about Him, and I still prayed personally. It's kind of tough looking back at some of the prayers I would have been talking to Him with. I'm in the middle of doing these bad things, and I would defend Him. Like I would defend God at every turn. Some of the band members, no reason to say any names, but some of them didn't believe in God. There was no God. No, man, there's not a God. And I would defend God. I'd be like, you're you're out of your mind.
While you're doing the stuff with them.
Well, if that tells you anything. But that's exactly right. I would be in the middle of doing sin, we'll call it, and at the same time, I'm like, you're wrong. You're a terrible person. How dare you say that? You know, and I would just constantly defend God, but it wasn't it wasn't a good thing. It's borderline blasphemous, but anyway, long story short, I ended up separating again, and I'm trying hard to figure out life again, and that by now I guess I'm 27 or 28, 29, somewhere in there, 28 I guess, somewhere in there, and I started working a different job, turning some new wrenches, after the band.
Do you have any kids with the second wife?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just the first. Okay. Sorry.
No,
just thought I'd ask.
y'all knew exactly what to do there. Didn't. Yeah, that's a good question. No, I didn't know. Thank you, sir. That would have been that wouldn't have been good. But
Okay.
no.
So you moved on. You got a new job.
Moved on. Started working a different job and started turning wrenches for someone else and fixing 18-wheelers again and working on diesels and stuff. But ended up it was about this time that I was roughly 32, 31 by now, and I had decided that I was going to try again. I was going to try to find a mate. My goal as a kid was always you gotta get a family, something similar to what mom and dad have. That was my basis, and you gotta find a family. You gotta do what you can to build a family. That's your job. Like that was always my thought pattern. You gotta find a wife. You gotta have some kids. You gotta build a fence and buy a house. You got to do all the things you're supposed to do. That was just what I
House
thought.
with the white picket fence.
That'd be fine. Whatever I could find. But I ended up posting online, and that's where I met you. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to you at the very beginning, and it was you had said something. You were like, "Well, somebody on here is posting about God," because I was a believer in God, and I announced it to anybody. I wasn't ashamed, but that didn't mean I was perfect. You know what I mean. By this point, I was not doing any drinking heavily anymore. I wasn't around people to do that. I was pretty much focusing on work and not really messing around with doing a lot of partying. After you're in a band for 3 years, 4 years, and you've partied all across, it's just drinking never really was my thing anyway. That's why I said I wasn't really an alcoholic, because I have no addiction to it. Just didn't do anything for me. I was like, we're having fun tonight, but I'm gonna feel like crap tomorrow, So I ended up just watching everybody else get hammered the past couple years of the band, even. But long story short, I decided to start looking again, and I found you, and we got together pretty quickly, and we ended up hitting it off pretty fast. I invited you to a dinner at my job, and we had I thought a whole lot of chemistry, at the time, and it was it wasn't like me to even go on a date with such a pretty woman. I was a little intimidated.
Okay.
I was intimidated. I remember being intimidated and being like, man, I'm not allowed to date someone this pretty. Like, this is not normal. Like, what's going on? So I would always think there was a catch. I'm thinking that's why I was, insecure at the first of our get together, because it was
Well, you've been through a lot with the other ones.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this one's gonna run off with somebody too. It's gonna happen. There's no way I'm gonna be able to prevent this. It's like, it's just gonna happen. I'm gonna have to deal with it. I'm strong. I can do this again. That was kind of my thought pattern at the time. But we had gotten together and we moved pretty quickly. As if anybody watched yours, they know that you had the girls. They were young.
How was that for you?
It was different. I was only used to boys. I was very cautious because I didn't really know how to act around girls exactly, and I got in trouble by you a few times for the things that I was a little too tough about. But boys are a lot easier, and they're a lot more easily, or the girls are a lot more easily offended and emotional. So I didn't get all that yet. It took a little time to get used to that aspect of our relationship. But we shortly after that, like you had said yesterday, got married, and we started immediately. I remember, because I hadn't been to church now in 15 years. I have not stepped foot in a church in 15 years, almost to the day, maybe 16 years. 15 to 17 years, I hadn't been in a church. I got invited several times from different people, family members, whatever, but I hadn't been back to church and done anything like that in so long. And I remember right off the bat, you're like, hey, we're going to be dating. We're going to be going to church. And I'm just like, whoa, I don't go to church. That's not something that I do. And you were like, well, sorry. And I remember it was around Christmas time, and it was one of our second or third trips. It might have been our second or third. It was coming up to Christmas, and your mom was taking us to the candlelight, and it was very emotional for me, because I don't ride with people very well, and your mom's getting behind the wheel. And she's in this van. She's like, get on in the van, and I'm just like, nice to meet you, or whatever. And she's like, jump on it, you can have the front seat, and I'm over there absolutely panicked that I'm riding with anybody, for one. Like, I don't let people just drive me around. My dad's about the only person I've ever let just drive me around. I'm not a good passenger. I'm not. I sat over there and just close to have a heart attack. But we got she drugged me into church, praise Yah, because it was a similar thing that what you were talking about for me. It was a similar thing. It was an opportunity to see what church had changed to, which was shocking.
Yeah.
I'm from the Southern Baptist setup, shaking hands, talking to the minister, and then I walk into this place, and Jennifer's going to it's a concert. It's a full-blown concert. It is. I've never seen a light show at a church like that. Never seen instruments pulled out like that. And we're, rock music and drums and all the instruments and people, beautiful singing. It was unbelievable. It was breathtaking. And I remember thinking, like, this is wild. And the very first thing I noticed was that none of the instrument players sat down and came to the pews to listen to the preacher, which I thought was odd. But I didn't understand it yet. I was still in the honeymoon phase of the mega church, you know, and you're just like, yeah, I've been going here for several months now, and the kids love the kid place, or whatever they call the youth spot, and they love this stuff. And I was just like, oh, seems like something I can get down with, and we just kind of did it. And I remember having a conversation with you about all of this one day, and I said, the Sabbath is on Saturday, right? And you looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, are you stupid? And I was like, yeah, just look at any calendar. Just check out any calendar. And you were like, that's not true. And you looked at the calendar and you were just like, our calendars where I grew up, they were different than this.
Man. They were different.
I'm not saying they weren't, but I think that I think it's odd that Sunday through Saturday has always been the calendar, and we were taught that in school, but yet the majority of the people, the majority of the Christians that go to church, they haven't even thought about it. They read the Sabbath day, and they know the commandment, but they haven't given them two thoughts to what day that actually is, what day it fell on. Is it the seventh day? Is it the first day? They don't even think about it. It doesn't matter. It's not important. It's unquestioned, and it's It's the Sabbath that started our conversation. I was trying to
It did.
draw that out of you last time we did your video. I was trying to draw that out of you because that Sabbath conversation, you were just like, well, we've been lied to. I remember you reacting like, why would this be a thing? And it wasn't even me that went down the rabbit hole. And I tell everybody this, and I'll say it now. If it wasn't for you seeing something that didn't fit the way you were raised, right? You were just like, well, you just had this confused look on your face like, well, I'll get to the bottom of this. And did you?
Yep.
You did. You went and you dug a rabbit hole that I didn't even know existed. So it was, at this point, now I'm like, wait a minute. All these years, my parents told me that the church was wrong. They told me that they were doing things wrong. We shouldn't be doing the Christmases, the holidays. And now here we are on the other side of this coin, 6 months into marriage with my now third wife, 2 stepchildren, and a baby on the way. And my wife is different. This is a different situation. She's not on drugs. She's dragging me into a church. She's hard-headed. She's strong. She's a strong woman. But this is something that I can jive with. This is something that helped me turn the idea of an actual family. Well, these kids need somebody. We got a kid on the way. I got a kid over here. We could draw this together. This could work. This could happen. So I get hope again. And I'm just like, okay, well, I need to do something I need to clean my life up. I need to go further. And it wasn't even about Yah at that time. It was more about, I need to be a better person. I need to figure out a way to make sure that this wife doesn't leave me.
So it was about self-preservation.
I knew I was filthy. I wasn't even ready to talk to Yah. Going into those churches, my thought patterns were going into that church. My thought patterns were still like, wow, what a wonderful music this has. This is breathtaking. That's what I was saying earlier. This is great. This preacher man kind of makes me laugh. I like this guy. Those were my thoughts. It was never focused to Yah until I opened my Bible again. And then I'm like, holy moly, I do know how to read. It's been 15 years. I haven't actually opened up a Bible and looked into it, did any studying, only knew the big stuff that my parents had showed me and all the stuff the church would have taught. The Noah's Ark, the Moses came down or went to Mount Sinai, the normal stuff that gets taught. Hey guys, what are we doing? Who's bringing the ham this Sunday for Christmas? The normal things the church would have taught you. So I hadn't thought about it, any of that being incorrect on a bigger scale, other than they just don't know when the Sabbath day is, man. That was the whole point of that conversation. And then the Christmas story comes up, the one that you brought up in your video, and that was one of those conversations like, I don't really want to do the Christmas thing anyway. We spent most of my life not doing it. My parents actually brought it back in later in life, and I didn't really cover that. But I will say that we stopped the Christmas. We never really did the Easter, but we stopped the Christmas for about the majority of my childhood, up until my first son became a kid that it would matter to. My parents thought, well, we got to get the Christmas thing going again. He's a baby. I'm assuming that was their angle. That's what they told me. But we ended up. I ended up getting back involved with Christmas and stuff as well. So it was the suction zone. You hear one thing, the truth, and you see on the other side of that coin that it's tough to tell your family no. And I understand that now way better than I did when my parents said that. They're like, well, it's real tough. It's tough just to ostracize your whole family because nobody wants to be around you, Brad, if you're not doing Easter, if you're not doing Christmas, if you're not being involved with the Halloween. Well, we never did the Halloween stuff, but the Easter and Christmas were a big thing for the Christians, right? And most of my dad's family are Christians, like Christians. They go to church, Pentecost, wear the skirts, all the things. But back to us, once I opened the Bible again and we started reading together, I realized I couldn't read. I think I mentioned that, or I struggled to get back into the idea to learn how to read. I could read, and obviously I read every day, small amounts, small things, but I had to get back to reading the Bible, which was a chore. At that time, if you going through Leviticus was a major ordeal in my brain. Not only could I not stay focused, but I had real bad anxiety. I still get it today. Sometimes when I read, I have to take it to pieces. But that's where you come along. In this deep intellectual brain of yours that can read all day long and fast as lightning, and you're able to decipher and read a bunch of information in a short amount of time. And you start digging. And I'm watching you dig in this process, and I'm like, I kind of get nervous, like she's going a little too far. Like,
You got nervous?
oh yeah, man.
I didn't know that.
You were zoned out for, especially after a little time had passed and you wrote your first book. It was intense.
It was intense during that
It was
time.
an intense journey on my side of things, because not because you of what you were doing. It was the obsessiveness. And looking back at it now, it's like, if Jim wouldn't have been obsessive over these certain things, attitude reflects your leadership. We're not going to be doing anything bad around the kids at the house ever. It's not happening, which I was cool with. We're going to go to church. You're going to go with me, Brad. I just found out this new thing, and I'm very curious about it, and I'm fixing to research it. And you just went and did it, and found all the things and more, and started introducing me to some of the extra things. Well, we're not supposed to be doing the Christmases and stuff, and then the Christmas story that you told comes out, when the children praying under the Christmas tree. That one, that worked.
That was a win
worked
for
in
you.
my favor.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll take it. Cool. And then all the other things started coming along. Hey man, you need to watch this video. You need to check this out. We're talking about all the things that the church teaches against, and it was just one piece of the pie at that time. And then my eyes started getting open, and I was it got so far at one point that I remember being hard-headed and being like, no, that's too far, that's too much. And I even fought you on it, and then all of a sudden, Yah has been softening my heart this whole time. He's like, hey man, you don't know nothing. You can't even read. Okay, so you stopped doing drugs. Great. That ain't nothing. You're still a filthy piece of trash. Like, in my brain, I'm thinking this whole time, but my heart's getting softer and softer. And then the kids are, they're all growing up, and we're getting closer and closer. And it's getting to a point now where the stuff that you're finding is so outlandish that I've got to look into it as well. So I started digging into I was good with the Sabbath. What about the history of the Sabbath? How did we lose the Sabbath? All that stuff. I didn't know any of that stuff. Where did the Sunday worship come from? All those things. Those are things that you introduced through your studies and then me being like, oh crap, this is interesting. And then I got interested. And then my heart was completely softened. And I started reading deeply, and I started reading the Bible, and I started going through it with you, and we did it with the kids, and then we're learning more, and we're finding out more things. And then the names came up. The names were a big deal. The names were a big deal for me. The versions of the Bible, big deal for Brad. Not so much for you. You were able to convince me otherwise through study, scripture, versus stuff that was called a Bible that wasn't scripture, that I didn't realize. The NIVs of the world, and the other translations that are just blatantly off on purpose.
69,000 words out of the
Yeah.
NIV.
Yeah, stuff like that.
The original translation.
I was always a KJV guy.
Just putting a plug in there.
And then, when I started seeing the fallacies in the KJV, it shocked me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so the KJV was written or transliterated or translated from this, and this is saying actually something different than this, and it
Why do you
hurt my
think that you were
feelings.
fighting at first? Because it hurt your
Because
feelings?
my heart was hard, and I was set in my ways, and um, I have gotten softer through the years. I'm sure. I mean, you know that, but
Boy, do I.
yeah, I was very hard-headed, stiff-necked, set in my ways. I know everything, and it's taken many years to let go of some of that stuff. I think it was I tell a friend of ours in our group, I tell him often that it took me 6 months to stop putting filth out of my mouth. 6 months is a long time to train yourself to not have filth coming out of your mouth. Okay, I stopped that. Now how do I get it to stop coming up here? And as we've learned more things, it's been it's eye opening that even after 10 years of going into all this and still trying to convince other people, right? Because that's been our calling now for a while.
Yours especially, I'll throw in there.
Well, yours is probably
I'm saying to like actually
recently.
have a group though has been
Well,
yours.
I'm talking about.
And I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that's your baby. Like that's something that you really felt called to do is
Yeah.
just to find people and give them a good place to establish themselves where they could feel at home and where they could learn the truth.
That's right.
Versus mine has been more to go out. Yours has been gather them in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and spread the truth, though, is what I meant. Like, not just at home, but our goal has been to tell people. You've told your whole family. I've tried to tell my whole family. We went the route that you probably shouldn't have immediately. But, praise Yah, we've had many opportunities that have been successful, and others that Yah has showed us that they weren't ever really wanting it anyway. And that's not that's not to say that they can't come back. It's not to say that the people won't come back to Him. And I would, I pray all the time that anybody that has been shown the truth runs with it. Forget us, forget what you and I are saying and doing, but go study this for yourself. It's so much bigger when you find out for yourself.
It is.
It's not the same when your wife's telling you and your friend's telling you, your mom, your dad. If you go and look at it yourself and you seek the Father personally, because that's what it took for me.
Yep.
Once you do that and He decides to show it to you, it's like a light has went off and you're just like.
What was your like aha moment, your light going off moment?
Oh man.
Like your big one. I know that we each have had several kind of smaller ones. They're always big, like mind-blowing things, but what was your big, like, okay, I was this way and I need to go this way? Not like kind of in the middle, because you said at first you were changing because, self-preservation, but when did it actually turn for Yeshu'a instead of for you?
When I realized that I wasn't saved.
Okay.
When I realized I had turned my back on whatever I was given as a kid through my parents, through church, personal thoughts, feelings, whatever. When I realized that I was not saved, and I realized it biblically, not just my opinion, not you telling me or anybody. It wasn't about that. It was Yah has not listened to nothing I've prayed about. I have never put Him first, and all this time I've defended Him. I've stood there and said, but I have casted out demons in Your name. You know what I mean?
That's what. That's what.
Yeah, I was that guy. I was literally
Depart
confused.
from me, you worker of iniquity.
Depart from me, you sinner. You workman of lawlessness. That's exactly, when I realized that, it scared the crap out of me. I was like, oh, I could have died while I was doing this. I could have died while I was doing that. I could be, at the time when this happened, burning in hell right now. That was
all the time thinking that you're saved.
all
Same
the time.
as me, right?
All the time thinking you're saved and have no clue that I am so lawless that I was so far from Him. And once I realized that, then I'm seeking. Then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not saved.
Yeah.
Nobody is. And
Not yet.
I have to find out how to be first off, and I have to find out exactly what my thoughts need to be seeking that truth, and I have to and I can find all of those instructions of how to live and what to be thinking in the Torah.
Yeah.
And when I realize that all the instructions for life are right here in the Torah, and then you can add the Tanakh, and then you can add Yahusha's actual words, and I put those in one big box of life instructions. The Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, mixed with the Tanakh, is a box of instructions that you can't run from.
When he says Tanakh, he's meaning the Old Testament. That's what a lot of people call it. It's
the Torah and the prophets.
It's the first 5 books along with the books of the prophets.
Yeah, Torah and the prophets. We'll call it the Old Testament to the 4 Gospels. If you listen to all of that truth and all that clarity, and you put it in a box, if you do those instructions, you have literally taken the advice of the Father who told you to, and then you've changed something to turn your heart from hard rock to something that is softer, maybe not flesh yet, but you have at least took to the point and said, I'm nowhere near the instructions for life, and I've got to do that.
Yeah.
And once you start doing those changes, Yah starts to open your eyes to other things. He starts showing you the true scripture that is so deep, and it's still unfolding today. It's been so many years, and like Jen said, we are definitely not the most studied people in the world, but we have found so many things that and we'll take breaks, and we'll get back into it. We'll take breaks again. We'll get overwhelmed. Different things happening.
Well, we read no matter what on Sabbath, but
For
like
sure,
taking breaks on the deeper studies.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Like.
And if I could get everyone that I talk to see the instructions for life, and then base their salvation on what the Messiah did for them and what he told them to do. If you can ever put those in the same categories, that's the Revelation, Revelation 18. That's the
I'm talking about the come out of her, my people, come out of the false indoctrination.
all of it, and that's the James 2 or whatever. Where that's
Show
him
you my
telling
faith
you
by my works.
your works are based on your life and how you're acting, and you're going to be judged on them, Brad. And I already know for a fact that Jesus died for me. I already know that happened, and he rose from the grave. I 100% know that. That's a fact. That's easy. To me, that the faith part is the easy part. Putting the faith with the commandments, and then realizing that the people that keep the commandments and have the faith are the people that are the remnant that actually get pulled back together.
It's like 4 different spots in Revelation, by the way.
Yeah, having that package deal where you're like, I've got faith, I'm keeping the commandments at the forefront. That means I'm following the 2 commandments that Yahusha said. Hey, what's the most important 2? Love the Father. That's number 1. So that means do what the Father asked you to do.
Because he came to do not his will, but the will of his Father.
Yeah, well, he said.
So that's why he said that was one of the 2 greatest commandments.
The greatest commandment is to love the Father with all your heart, mind, and soul. That right there says keep every statute, ordinance, commandment that the Father told you to. Yeah. It's his advice. It's Yahusha stating, my advice to you people is that you should love the Father like I do.
Yep.
Because I keep the commandments. Why wouldn't you? And those are the things that when it struck me is when I had that boom,
that you weren't
just
saved.
Blast you in the face like, wow.
It's scary. It's
a scary thought.
feeling to think that you are going to be saved, and not only saved, but you're going to be raptured out before anything bad happens,
Oh,
and
man.
nothing bad is going to happen to you, and everything's going to go swell in your life, and etc. When the reality is that we're here to be tested, and we're here to be proved and tried by
That's right.
fire in some cases to get to where we're going.
Yep.
And okay, so you had that turning point, and then I'm digging deep, and your eyes are getting opened, and go.
Well, it's just from there. It's been just one thing after another. It's been a blessing. We've had our ups and downs. We've been blessed with a life that is not. It's what I pictured, but it had nothing to do with God in my picture. So we've got 'em. I've got both now. I've got children that I love. I've got a wife that loves me, that I love, and I've got Yeshu'a all in this package, and it's such a blessing to look back and think about what could have been. Where would Brad be if he wouldn't have met this woman?
Yeah.
I tell Jen often, actually, and if I could go back in time, I would just found her at like 20. I forget all the rest of the stuff.
Well, then you wouldn't, we had to go through the things that we had to go through.
I know.
But it was very much between our two stories. It was very much Yahuwah's hand in it.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because without Brad, I wouldn't have found the stability and the comfort and the rock that I needed. And
Same for me.
yeah,
And you may not see it that way on my side, but that's a fact. If you're not involved in Brad's life, Brad could be dead. I mean, I don't know where I would have ended up, but it would not have been. I feel like that stepping stone of meeting you, going to church, that stepping stone caused me to want to find Yeshu'a and search for him. There was other things in between, obviously. You showing such a zealousness that I hadn't been around in years. I'm like, what are you doing? What do you mean you want to go stand in front of the church and say what? You know what I mean? But yeah, that whole having the family now, looking back, I'm so thankful, and having having the spiritual family that we have now.
Yeah.
Super thankful. Some of the
we
people
had to go it alone for a few years. That was rough.
We did, and we will. We'll continue to go it alone.
Sure. If we have to.
We have to. I pray that everyone
Please
that's
stay.
Well, it would
people in our group.
It'd
Please
be
stay.
nice. It'd be nice. We try our hardest to be as hospitable as we can, and it's been wonderful to have good kids, and we've just been blessed. I've been blessed. But the testing is coming, and I think that's
Another form of testing.
a real test. I mean, a real test. How much do you love me? I know that's coming,
Yeah.
and I love him. I love him a lot, and I think that he's pulled us out of the fire, literally, and given us both an opportunity that has been, hey man, here's your chance.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with it? You gonna screw this one up too, Brad?
I feel that way a lot. Yeah. Not screw up Brad,
Well,
but
that sucks.
screw up Jen. You mean what I know.
You mean what I say. But that's pretty much it. And we're now trying to push to 20 people in our group, and we have grown tremendously. And
Yeah.
I've had a blast at times, and other times it's been life. But we're still getting blessed today. We just don't realize it. I tell the kids all the time, we got a place to live. We got all the food we want. What'd you do today? Well, I read a book. You know how many kids would love to say that they just read a book today?
Well, they have chores in school as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in their free time, they like to read books.
Our children have a lavish life.
They do, actually. And
Good job,
it's
Mom.
not too lavish, but it's more than necessities.
It is more than
It's not like
necessities.
we're spending $20,000 on a yacht or something,
No.
but
We poor. It's fine.
but we make more than do with what we have, and
That's right.
we're very grateful and thankful for all the blessings. And
I'm thankful for you.
you did a good job, honey.
Well, I'm glad you think so. Anyway, we'll see y'all next time.
Be careful I'll speed boat.